Welcome to the Global Gratitude Summit. I'm Luann Saraga Walters.
And I'm Sharon Saraga Walters.
And you'll notice that on this particular day, we actually have Sharon and Luann in two different locations. And that's because, well, that's what sometimes happens in life. So Sharon is a little bit northward and I am southward in Florida, but we're both joining for this amazing episode where we're talking with two women who are extremely well versed in their area. Our guests today have over 35 years of combined clinical working experience in the fields of psychotherapy, mental health, and holistic wellness. Dr. Patty Hlava is a licensed psychotherapist with an extensive background in teaching in university settings. Her research on the effects of gratitude on wellness have been published in the International Journal of Transpersonal Psychology, the Journal of Humanistic Psychology, and in several books. Her specialization is merging the sciences of yoga, Ayurveda, and psychology as integrated healing modalities. And Dr. Laura Stephan is a clinical psychologist specializing in holistic wellness, working in both mental health and yoga communities. For the past 8 years, she's provided mental health services for chronic illness, brain injury rehabilitation, neuropsychology, and community mental health. Her specialization is bringing mindfulness and somatic resourcing to each person's unique way of being, and we'll find out exactly what that is. Together, they co-founded Awaken Peace to nurture community and heartfelt connections, and we're so honored to welcome both Dr. Hlava and Dr. Stephan to the Global Gratitude Summit. Welcome, doctors.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Such a joy to have both of you here. And as I was telling you, Sharon and I were looking through, and Sharon is a magnificent researcher in this, and she found you. She just found you with, we're looking at mental health. That's something that we really wanted to touch on with gratitude. And lo and behold, you both not only practice it, but have researched gratitude and wellness. So this is one of the areas that I really want to start off with. In your vast backgrounds and your experience, you do share that passion for working in the field of mental health using gratitude. So I want to find out what that connection is. Why were each of you individually drawn to mental health and gratitude? Dr. Hlava, let's go ahead and start with you.
Yeah, it started really for me as a very personal experience. I think there was a time in my 20s where, as a 20-year-old, I was fairly self-entitled because that's what happens sometimes. And I was in this space of grieving. I had lost a friend to a fatal car accident and was in this space of not really knowing how to navigate that, and had this opportunity to travel. And I went to Belize to study and immerse myself in the space of Mayan history, and I found myself in this span of nature, of just expansive rainforest and beauty and supportive community, and had this moment where everything kind of dissolved around me, and I wept and felt in that moment, one, I was able to access the grief, but two, I felt so much true deep gratitude and connection for everyone and everything that had gotten me to that point in my life, my family, my friends, all these things that allowed me to be here in this space connected to nature and in this community where I was allowed to paint and process grief. And that stuck with me. It became my avenue for grieving. It became my avenue for connection and connecting to my family in a way I'd never been able to do before. And that stuck with me. So then as I continued in my life and started studying mental health and studying therapy, it became this thing that I never let go of. So when I got into my doctoral work, I started studying it. I'm like, how does gratitude affect relationships? How does it do that? And I kept finding nothing but evidence that it is the cornerstone of cultivating healthy relationships and healing relationships with others and with yourself.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I love your passion around finding that. You've got a choice in your doctoral program of what you want to study, and kudos to you for actually studying something that is vital for its positive effect.
Yeah.
It was probably really good for your mental health as well while you were doing it. Goodness.
Tremendously.
So, Dr. Stephan, how did you become involved in mental health and the aspect of gratitude?
Yeah. So very different story from Patty's. I really only came to gratitude pretty recently, in starting to work with Patty on the Awaken Peace project. And I hope that it's helpful for viewers to hear this side, because I have heard many, many people have this experience that before Patty started talking about it, I was really one of those people that was like, Psh, gratitude, this is just about rose-colored glasses, and can't really, I couldn't possibly deal with real stuff of life, you know. I kind of thought it was a fluffy sort of thing. And I am so grateful for my work with Patty, because it really, I picked up pretty early into learning what gratitude is, that it is actually not just not fluffy, but it's completely the opposite. And I think I could speak for probably both of us as therapists that we approach both therapy, mental health, and just psychology in general as learning and helping others learn how to navigate just what it means to be human. And certainly there are diagnoses and symptoms and that sort of thing. And with that, I would say the majority of our work is really just dealing with these normal things that humans deal with. And that does involve pain, grief, and lots of difficult things that we need to allow to be present. So learning about gratitude from Patty, and I'm sure we'll get into this more in the call, it really, gratitude is something that fits perfectly with that work that we do in psychology. It is the thing that gets you through these difficult experiences that we have as humans.
I just want to say how much I really appreciate also the differences that you both carry. One, with one of you, one having the gratitude just in sync and part of you. And then, for you, Dr. Stephan, that, you go, I don't know about that. I'm not sure yet. And so as psychologists, I think it's really wonderful for people to hear your two different experiences on that. So thank you for that. So how do you use gratitude in your work at Awaken Peace?
It's really the cornerstone, I think, of everything we do. It links everything. So gratitude is this experience that when we're tapped into it and access it, it opens us up. It brings us into this new space of vulnerability and rawness. So some of the things that we do in Awaken Peace, it's really about helping people get connected to themselves, back in their bodies. And when we're in gratitude, we can really do that in a really deep and authentic way. We talk a lot about intention setting and sankalpa, this idea of a deep, really true intention that comes from our heart, from the center of our spirit, really. When we're in gratitude, we can get beyond that superficial view of what that might be, because we can be like, oh yeah, I really need to lose 5 pounds, or I really need to, get the perfect relationship. But when we're in gratitude, we start from that place. We can see the richness that already exists in our lives, and we can get more fine-tuned and more intentional about what it is we really need. We get this clarity about what we want in our life. We get this clarity of appreciation, acknowledgement for our body. Regardless of what it may look like or feel like on that day, we can still connect to those nuances and come to ourselves from a very loving place, as opposed to the self-critical place that we often do. So in some ways, everything we do in Awaken Peace, it comes back to gratitude as how we start, how we open, how we access all these other avenues of personal healing and growth.
I like how you started too by saying it creates a space of vulnerability.
Yeah.
I don't think that's something that's necessarily associated with gratitude very often. So explain the vulnerability aspect of that a little bit further.
Absolutely. Gratitude, when we're in gratitude, we have to acknowledge that we've received something, that there was something that we did not have, something that we were perhaps missing or in need of. And in order to really receive those gifts and come into gratitude, we have to acknowledge that there was a need. And there's a vulnerability in that. There's a softening for us to be able to open and receive, where we go, oh, well, I needed that hug. I needed that compliment. I needed that cup of tea, whatever it is, to acknowledge that there was a need. We step into a place of rawness. and even being able to share that or ask for a need to be met, there's a very raw vulnerability in that.
And that's kind of a shifting of what we perceive as strengths. Sometimes we think of strength as being untouchable or preventing something from harming us, whereas you're taking it the other direction, and that vulnerability makes us stronger to be able to get into. How would you talk about that as far as like a shifting of, I know you were talking about it makes us reframe things, it makes us shift that perspective of what is. Does it change our values? Does it, I don't know. I'm trying to reach for something. I don't necessarily know how to state it.
Well, when we're in gratitude, it shifts our perspective from the lens of scarcity into one of abundance. We start seeing the richness of what actually exists as opposed to what's missing. Our idea of what is weak and what is strong, we get to see the strength and the courage in asking for help. Because suddenly we see the benefit of connection that comes from having received something and felt that gratitude. It opens our viewpoint. When we walk around, currently we have, or I think we're in a cultural paradigm that really shifts us into the scarcity model. We're really focused on what we don't have, what we don't have. Media advertising is great at this. It tells us everything we don't have and what we think we need. So we're somewhat conditioned to that. When we're practicing gratitude, we start to really see that there's more abundance in our life than scarcity, and that the abundance isn't necessarily in material things, although in reality we have an abundance of material things in the world. We have excess, quite honestly. But we can step back and, well, what do I really have? What is the richness of this relationship? What is the richness of the breath that I have in my body? What is the richness of my ability to speak and use my voice to ask for what I do need?
Hmm.
It opens us up in a very different way.
That's interesting. And Dr. Stephan, if you can continue on that theme, and how does that apply to the state of our mental health when we can make that kind of connection and alteration?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, yeah, when you said, does this involve a value shift? I think my first thought was I think it has to. Um, and a value shift from what society values, in addition to our own values. So this is where the neuropsychology comes in. Our brains are not designed, they're not wired to live in this world that we live in right now. Um, they were built to walk through the desert or walk through the rainforest and, be amongst beasts and that sort of thing. And for that reason, they're not good at focusing on what are the good things or on embracing vulnerability either, because we're just designed to hunt and gather and fight predators, basically. So because of that, the mind has a negativity bias for a really good reason. It is hypervigilant for all of the bad things that are out there. And in our own brains now, that can look like, all right, what am I doing later today? What's all the stuff I have to do next week? Looking out for all of the worst things. And the worst things about ourselves too. So that's where that self-judgment comes in. So the brain is wired to be negative. It's called the negativity bias. And what's really great about gratitude is that it doesn't even necessarily shift the environment. It doesn't shift the landscape of what is out in front of us, of even what we have or don't have necessarily, at least not directly, but it shifts us into looking at what is also there. Because our brain, if we let it do what it's going to do, it's 100% of the time, or 99, automatically going to go toward what isn't there.
Which is meant for survival, like you said.
Absolutely.
It had a purpose. So it's and now we've kind of shifted away from that need, and evolutionarily, I suppose, we've exceeded in technology where we've come through. So we have to intentionally do that refocusing. So from that neuropsychology standpoint, I like to geek out on this stuff a little bit.
Us too.
So I'm relying on you, Dr. Stephan. From that neuropsychology standpoint, how much effort does it take to create that kind of a shift?
Mm.
when we're looking at that, and what have you found in your clinic, in your practice at Awaken Peace? What does it take towards being able to break through and to establish a different kind of pattern?
Yeah. Oh, that is such a great question. Well, and it makes me think of Patty's story. I mean, sometimes it's not even something we control. Sometimes something really intense happens to us that just throws us into gratitude. Um, so in that case, sometimes it just happens. In terms of cultivating it, I mean, like our Insight Timer course that you mentioned, we have 10 minutes or 10 days of 10 minutes a day. Is all it really takes to start to experience this skill. If we think of gratitude as a skill, now does that mean that we're going to be in gratitude all day, every day? Definitely not. But just like a lot of things like mindfulness and those sorts of things, we can really think of gratitude as a muscle, or like a skill that we can, like a coping skill really, that we can start to strengthen the more we do it.
Like a tool in our toolbox.
Yeah,
We can
absolutely.
use to, well, that's an encouraging way to think about it too. And that, I'm going to continue with you, Dr. Stephan, and then do Dr. Hlava. Pipe in if you have, please, free for
Sure,
all.
sure.
I know we're looking at this and it does feel a little bit like the Brady Bunch. I want to wave. So it's like, hi. But so if you look up, you can wave to us. But I wanted to start with that aspect that Dr. Stephan, you said at the beginning, was your experience prior to working together, of gratitude simply just being kind of that fluffy feeling, and getting to the core of this. And I know, Dr. Hlava, with your personal experience of it, you'll be able to jump into it. How do we give space that we need to, for our own emotional and mental health, to be in grief, to recognize depression, and not try to bat it away as if, that's bad, I need to stay in gratitude, but to fully experience that, to work through it. Or is that even a good thing? I mean, I'm throwing this out here as a statement / question. How can we experience what it is to be a human being, experiencing that aspect of life, and give it the recognition that may be due to it in order to then go into gratitude? So what do we do?
Absolutely. I think you said everything that I was going to say, basically. Gratitude does not mean, and good mental health does not mean that we never have bad feelings. It doesn't mean that we never have pain or grief or loneliness. And what the great thing about gratitude is that it does, it is the thing that can help us through that time. So while it can sometimes feel nice and pleasant, my guess is that Patty, in that moment when she was on that trip, was not necessarily feeling probably phenomenal or pleasant. That's probably not the word. um, it's big feelings that are usually there with gratitude. So I think what's great about that is, again, it's more of, what are we doing with the pain? How are we being with it and coping with it? Exactly like you said, to not deal with it, to not push it away, but to say, okay, can I reach out? Gratitude is what puts us into that place of being able to reach out to people. And we know that through this really solid research that we have. What am I going to do with this pain? What can I do? And gratitude opens us up into that space to do that. Yeah. Would you add anything, Patty?
Yeah, a little bit. Actually, there's this thing that was interesting when I was doing the interviews for the gratitude study. We interviewed 100 some people and did 400 some surveys. I believe it was a lot. And
Wow.
one of the things that was most interesting is that the majority of the really deep gratitude experiences came from people's really painful moments. And there's a reason for that. If we think about ourselves as humans, we have this natural tendency to want to really push away everything that's bad, like all the painful feelings, the sadness, the anger, the fear. We push them away, and we put a lot of attention on it. Like our whole body, all our energy is focused on this negativity that we're trying to hold back. And if we think about it, we're literally turning our back on the pleasant experiences. We're literally turning our back on our ability to feel when we're focusing so much on trying to not feel the bad. When we really let ourselves sink in and own those painful moments, like in that moment of bliss, I was in grief and I was lonely, and I had that moment of just being in that loneliness, but I happened to be there in a space where I could be comforted by nature. When we let ourselves really feel the depth of the pain, suddenly we open ourselves up to the experience of the pleasant emotions as well. And that's where gratitude tends to just wash right in. One of the interviews that I did was a woman who was in recovery from cancer. And one of her greatest, deepest moments was in one of her most vulnerable pieces of going through treatment and seeing her husband see her as whole, even in that process. And that was her extreme gratitude moment, and of feeling that, oh, I'm raw, I'm vulnerable, I don't feel whole and complete, and yet here's this man, because she could see him in that moment. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
I think it does, and more. It brings us to that next space. Actually, you did a good little segue into going from things that happen out here to
yeah.
things that happen in here,
Mm.
and as you've both mentioned, how we view ourself and that aspect of what's going on in our minds and linking into our emotions about us. And I'll let Sharon bring us into the next section.
Yeah.
And so, how does gratitude help transform our relationship with ourself?
Do you want to start on this one, Laura?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so first, I mean, I think we could say we know this from the research. The research really solidly shows that when someone has more of a experience of gratitude, they're more likely to experience self-compassion and those positive feelings about self and that sort of thing. Gratitude it only exists in relationships, and that includes ourself as well. um, we can't have gratitude without being in relationship with other things. If we weren't living in the world, we wouldn't even really need gratitude, because it is about reaching out. And so I think that relationship with the self, like you're talking about, um, it's shifting exactly what our mind wants to do with the world. And we, our body, our thoughts are part of the world, just like the bear in the woods or the stuff on my to-do list. My stomach grumbling, my body feeling tired today, maybe even a sadness coming up while I'm trying to go about my workday. All of that, if we treat it the same as we treat those things that are out in the world, if I can lean into them, sit in that feeling of gratitude, and look for what else is here to support me through these things. Not only can I solve those things, but I'm feeling pretty good about myself at that point. I'm validating and affirming and all of that.
Okay, so something crappy just happened. Grr, my office coworker is blah, blah, blah. How do I get to intentionally try to practice some gratitude? So I'm going to open it up. Do you guys have specific tools that you talk with your clients for to do the mind shift thing? I don't want to be this kind of person. I want to be happier. I want to be more grateful. How do I step out of that?
Do you want to start, Laura?
I think you should go for it. I think you have
to There's so many things. And it's so fun to play. In some ways, it's about really letting it become about play and being playful. So we start opening up awareness by doing something as simple as a gratitude journal, which you might just take and write down a couple of things here and there that you feel appreciative for, or that, wow, I'd be really sad if I didn't have that. So I'll be grateful for that, whether it's a coffee maker or a cup of tea or whatever that may be. We start to sometimes even leave notes. I have had patients put reminders on their phones that go off at just a couple times a day that are just, and they'll say one word like notice. That's it. So it's pausing and noticing, like, what right now in this moment is okay. So we'll start with neutral. We don't have to jump to gratitude right away, because sometimes that's too big a leap. Sometimes we go, what's neutral? What about this moment right now is actually kind of pleasant? So we start with that, and we start building that awareness. So it's a habit, like every so often at this time every day, my phone's going to go off, and I'm going to take 30 seconds or 1 minute, notice what's neutral, what's okay. And eventually that opens up and it starts being like, okay, what about today is nice? What do I like? And then we can start opening that up even farther to what do I really appreciate? What do I feel grateful for? Then we can start practicing even expressing it. So it's building on these really tiny baby steps, and they can seem like they're doing nothing. They can seem almost nonsensical. So I took 1 minute, but 1 minute every day, suddenly there's this shift where instead of, oh, that guy cut me off, what a jerk, that happens every day, it's, oh, wow, I'm glad he made it through and nobody got hurt. And we don't even realize it's happening. It's just, oh, wow, I'm glad I was able to see him and get out of the way in time. Those little shifts start happening without us even being necessarily too intentional about it. If we start by being very small and intentional in our shift in what we're letting ourselves pay attention to.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Dr. Stephan?
Yeah, I mean, I would just add to that, this experience that I had this morning, I think it's because I know to watch out for gratitude that it probably would have been a 2-second thing that in the past I would have said, oh, it's nice that person held the door for me. But today when I felt it, I was like, oh, gratitude. I'm really stressed. I should sit with this for a second. And I held on to it as long as I could, because I mean, hey, I'm not worrying anymore during that time. And that's awesome. Otherwise, that stuff really starts to stack up over the course of the day. And so if we can just shift for 2 seconds into that gratitude space, we get to be there for 2 seconds.
Yeah. And it's like you said at the beginning too, our brains they evolved to help us survive. They evolved to look for things that might put us in danger. And so the practice of gratitude, like you're just saying, like you both just said, you get to then actually start to notice things that don't put us in danger, but help us live and thrive. And that's really cool. I'm glad you said that. This is an awesome conversation. We are at our final question, believe it or not. We've already almost eclipsed our time with you, and we've loved it because we could do this again and again and again. I love having you guys on. It's awesome. So Sharon, why don't you ask our final question, and this will be for each of them.
Okay, great. So we've had just so many wonderful conversations around gratitude. And so we're curious, what is your personal definitions for each of you of gratitude?
That's a great question.
That is a really good question.
For me, my personal definition of gratitude is almost generic. I think is really living with an open heart. Being grateful is living with an open heart. And when we're in that space, it's softening. It's softening and letting ourselves receive and acknowledge the gifts that we have. So gratitude is living with an open heart.
Nice. Dr. Stephan?
Yeah, I suppose mine is probably a different way of saying the same thing. And I think this quote comes from Patty. I don't know. You can let me know if it comes from somewhere else, but this is definitely a phrase that you say. For me, it's what else is also there? What else is also present? Which in a way is openness. But if there's a bunch of crap, what else is also here?
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome, because both of you are talking about the present moment, bringing it back to right now, noticing what is now, what is right now, in different ways of doing it. based on our experiences and our backgrounds. That's
Mhm.
awesome. So from me, and then I'll let Sharon say her part, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the Global Gratitude Summit, for jumping at the opportunity. It was awesome when we reached out to you and you're both like, yes, this is cool, because we so appreciate what you do, with your work. And the combination of the two of you is really powerful, and where you've each come from with your personal studies and your personal experiences and your professional experiences and dedication. So thank you very much from me to you guys too. And I know Sharon has hers too.
Yeah, thank you both so much. For what I love about this is that being psychologists and having your clients, patients, to be able to explain and give them these different examples about gratitude, and especially starting small. I think sometimes, I know for myself, I try and go to the hallmark highest level of gratitude, but hearing you both, it's like, it's really, you need to start in a different place, and you take them from that place beyond, 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 and it's a world changer. So I really thank you both for what you're doing, in this world, with on so many levels of gratitude and so much more. Thank
We've
you.
appreciated having you here very, very much. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks
We've
so much
enjoyed.
for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And don't forget, everybody, go to awakenpeacehealing.com to learn more about Dr. Laura Hlava Dr. Patty Hlava and Dr. Laura Stephan. I knew as soon as I said it, that was wrong. But to learn more about their work and find out how to connect with them, and that will be in the credits as well. So once again, thank you for joining us, all of you listeners and viewers, for the Global Gratitude Summit, and see you next time. Bye-bye.